Welcome to Trance Basics here at creatingtrance.com. We'll be going into the basic fundamentals of trance production by building out a very simple outline project that can later be built into something massive down the road, kind of like a backbone project. We're going to start with a Kong instrument. Building the beat is normally the first element that I put into the sequencer in order to lay out a draft idea of the entire song. Here I'm drawing in a basic 4x4 beat in the sequencer. Then I'm going to step out of edit mode, copy, and then paste to fill out a section. I'll add a new lane and then draw in a section that I'll be using for the high spectrum percussion like a hi-hat and a clap. Always remember that you can join clips to help simplify the sequencer, which involves selecting all of the clips and then right-clicking and selecting Join Clips. Okay, so I have a copy of the kick MIDI information. I'm going to paste it into this new lane that I've created in the sequencer. Instead of the kick though, I'll move it up to the hi-hat sample. Then I'll add in some even note 16ths, which are a common rhythm found in trance. Let's put in another organic shaker here too. Notice the space between the off notes, like they're almost taking turns. Trance tends to utilize a 4-bar rhythm even if it's dead simple, like this one. Looking at the Kong instrument, you'll notice that you can expand a lower section. Here you will find all sorts of settings including individual effects and external routing. There are a couple of different sample types in which we have an NN Nano, which is pretty much a miniature NN19 sampler, just kind of a smaller version of another instrument in Reason. Let's again double the latest section up and then make it even more advanced. Most of the time we have the hi-hats double, triple, and even sometimes quadruple up. Here we'll just be doubling the main hi-hat rhythm up. Notice how I'm setting the velocity a bit lower than the other pattern of notes. There is a lot of space at these points in the track, so the hats don't have to be as loud or as present, which is what velocity controls for the most part. Alrighty, now we have a couple of different beat sections. Let me build out a majority of the song. This is a good tactic to just fill out the project and set up a good skeleton of where everything will go. The beat is the easiest part of the track to do this with. Remember how the layers come in, and you can even color code the sequencer information and reflect where the music moves around to. There's a lot of different ways to organize it. Just make sure that you're involving space. There's parts of trance where there's not even a kick, but there are side chains, which I'll get to in a moment. Okay, let's add a Thor instrument. These are the more advanced synth plugins in Reason and have so many different capabilities. The best way to learn is to load up templates and just turn knobs as you're holding a note or letting a section of MIDI notes loop. What we're looking for in this particular synth is a very high attack. You'll see that this Thor instrument has 3 envelopes. Attack being the first of the 4 functions of an envelope, the other 3 being decay, sustain, and release, which I'll dive into in a later episode. When you turn the attack all the way up, it drastically lowers the initial input of the sound. The higher the attack, the longer it takes the sound to build all of the way to its decay point. Now that we have that set up, let's toss in a filter for high and mid control and a homemade sidechain in order to make room for the kick and to keep the rhythm moving when we decide to remove the kick later in the beginning of the first build section. Remember, with these red drum instruments, you can automate anything, especially the loop section next to the run button. You can even automate the run button itself if you just want to turn it on or off, or you can automate a certain pattern section. Those automations come out as a little drop-down menu. They aren't drawn in as points, but you'll see when you set automation for that. Bringing the filter down will take the edge off of the synth. This is always something that you can automate open later in the track for an added effect. Okay, let's paint in a chord for this high attack synth. Normally we'd use a minor chord, but you can really use any kind of chord you want. I'll get this set up and stretched out. Sounds nice. Let's filter the kick and bring it down so that we can open it up later in the track. Okay, let's add a lead instrument. The maelstrom will do for this task. Find a punchier sound that can be controlled with the mod wheel. Sounds good. Let's put some reverb on the lead in order to bring the higher EQ resonance out a bit more. Ah, yes, that sounds awesome. I'm using a MIDI keyboard, so I'll just hit record here and I'll lay in a couple of handmade arpeggiation notes. Let's clean this up and find a simple rhythm in what I just recorded. Remember that you can always quantize your recorded notes by simply right-clicking on the bar of the notes in the sequencer and selecting Quantize Notes at the very bottom. The button directly to the lower right of the record button on the playhead controls will quantize recordings for you automatically if it's turned on before you hit record. Whenever you're looking for a rhythm, sometimes you can play them on a piano and other times you can just draw them in and move them around in the sequencer to line them up better than you had originally imagined. This time around I'll be cutting all of the excess off in search for a simpler rhythm that repeats every bar. Basic, but that's what this tutorial is about. We'll toss a filter onto the lead synth and then automate it opening up as the intro section progresses in. I'll also automate the mod wheel of the lead synth itself to add even more of a progressive effect. Let's build this section out a little bit more. In the second build section, we'll move the chord around just a little bit to start changing the backing wall sound. I'm realizing here that you can't hear the high-end samples in the Kong instrument because of the filter. Let me just set an automation to open that up in the intro section and fill out the rest of the intended effect on the rest of the track. Pitch bending is also a very common technique found in trance. Before I play this back though, I'm going to automate all 3 levels of attack on the Thor instrument in order to keep it more present as we progress through the intro. This will also allow us to make quicker and more dynamic changes, which you'll see in a bit. So, for this second build section here, I'm going to go ahead and put a 4-chord combination rhythm into here. Following common notes alongside the same scale by using my ears, I can walk around in the scale that is most comfortable sounding to me. Now we're going to add a bass line using a Thor instrument. I put a filter on it for more control. After setting up a loop, I can go into the piano roll and experiment with simple bass notes. After finding something fun, you can add other effects such as automating the pitch from the instrument for very short and quick intervals. Once I've found a good simple bass line, I can copy and paste it around the track just for basic structure. Later on in the track, I'll make the bass line a little more dynamic. This sometimes works well when the bass and the lead are tied together. In this case, they're not, but that's a more advanced synth setup that we'll get into in a later episode. Thanks for watching.